In the hushed realm of the great library, a single dusty bookshelf stood as a vast landscape of forgotten tales and untold adventures. Here, in this silent cathedral of paper and wood, a tiny creature named Fleck stirred to life. Born of dust motes and forgotten book fibers, Fleck awoke within the spine of an ancient tome, his eyes blinking in wonder at the shafts of golden light that danced through the air, illuminating his world with an ethereal glow. As Fleck peered out from his cozy nook, he beheld a sight both magnificent and daunting. Towering cliffs of leather-bound volumes stretched as far as his tiny eyes could see, their spines etched with gilded letters that seemed to whisper secrets of ages past. The wooden shelf beneath was no mere surface, but a sprawling plain, its grain forming valleys and ridges that promised perilous journeys for one so small. Suddenly, a gentle tremor shook the shelf, as if some giant had closed a distant door. In that moment, a wondrous thing occurred. A single, beautifully illuminated letter A, crafted of gold leaf and vibrant pigments, flaked away from its manuscript home. Fleck watched in awe as it tumbled through the air, spinning end over end in a graceful dance of light and shadow. Time seemed to slow as the precious character descended, finally coming to rest upon the wooden ground far below with a soft, almost mournful thud. From his lofty perch, Fleck gazed down at the fallen letter, its inner light flickering weakly like a wounded firefly. His gaze then turned to the manuscript from whence it came, and he saw how the words around the empty space looked forlorn and incomplete. Without need for explanation, Fleck understood in his very being that the story was now broken, its magic diminished by the loss of this single, vital piece. In that moment, a great purpose filled Fleck's tiny heart. He knew, with a certainty that defied his small stature, that he must return the fallen character to its rightful place. Only then could the story be made whole once more, its magic restored to delight readers for generations to come. As Fleck began his descent from the safety of his book-spine home, a new presence made itself known. Gliding across the shelf with an eerie, undulating motion came a silverfish. To Fleck's eyes, it was not a mere insect, but a giant, shimmering beast of mindless destruction. Its segmented body reflected the dim light as it moved, drawn inexorably towards the faint glow of the fallen letter. Fleck knew that this creature represented a grave threat, not just to his mission, but to all the stories that dwelled within the great library. Undeterred by the looming danger, Fleck scanned his surroundings for anything that might aid his quest. Fortune smiled upon him as his gaze fell upon a long, crimson thread, a stray fiber from some long-lost velvet bookmark. In Fleck's mind, this was no mere string, but the legendary rope of ages, a tool of untold strength and possibility. With careful, nimble movements, Fleck fashioned the thread into a tiny harness and lasso. His plan, born of necessity and imagination, was to drag the heavy letter across the vast expanse of the shelf, and then hoist it back to its home among the words. Fleck's journey began in earnest as he set out across what he dubbed the plains of Vellum, the vast, flat cover of a giant book that stretched before him like an endless desert. The golden letter, now secured by his crimson lifeline, trailed behind him as he pulled with all his might. Yet danger lurked nearby, for the silverfish patrolled these plains, its antennae twitching in search of paper to devour. With each step, Fleck remained vigilant, his tiny heart pounding as he sought shelter behind the giant embossed letters that adorned the book's cover. He held his breath as the silverfish passed by, praying that the glow of his precious cargo would not betray their presence. At last, Fleck reached the edge of the plains of Vellum, only to face a new and daunting challenge. Before him yawned the Canyon of Spines, a deep and shadowy chasm between two mighty tomes. The gap seemed to stretch down into infinity, a void that threatened to swallow both Fleck and his golden charge. Undaunted, Fleck set to work, using his crimson thread to create a bridge across the terrifying expanse. With painstaking care, he anchored one end securely to the edge of the book, then cast the other across the void. His tiny form trembled as he inched his way along the thread, pulling the precious letter behind him, acutely aware that a single misstep could spell disaster for his mission. Just as Fleck reached the other side of the canyon, disaster struck. The golden letter slipped from its harness, dangling precariously over the edge, held only by the slenderest strand of the crimson thread. Fleck's heart nearly stopped as he saw his goal literally hanging by a thread. To compound his despair, the silvery form of the silverfish appeared at the far end of the book, blocking any path forward. In this moment, trapped between the void and the beast, Fleck felt the weight of his impossible task bearing down upon him. But in the face of certain failure, Fleck's tiny mind raced with determination. Drawing upon reserves of courage he didn't know he possessed, he formulated a daring plan. Gathering a small pile of dust from the book's surface, he cast it into the air, creating a shimmering cloud that drifted away from his position. The silverfish, its simple mind drawn to the movement, scuttled off in pursuit of the distraction. With the path momentarily clear, Fleck turned his attention to the final, most daunting challenge of all, the sheer vertical cliff of the manuscript page. The golden letter hung heavy at the end of his crimson rope, a burden that seemed impossible for one so small to bear. Yet bear it he must, for the sake of the story and all who might one day read it. Anchoring his rope with fierce determination, Fleck began the slow, arduous climb up the wall of words. Each tiny movement was a struggle, his form straining with effort as he pulled the glowing letter ever upward. The texture of the paper, once so innocuous, now felt like a treacherous mountain face, each fiber a potential pitfall. As Fleck neared the empty space where the letter belonged, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. His limbs trembled, his breath came in tiny gasps, but still he pushed onward. At last, with one final Herculean effort, he reached the gap in the text. What happened next was nothing short of magical. As Fleck pushed the golden letter close to its home, the very page seemed to recognize its lost child. A soft, golden energy emanated from the paper, gently pulling the letter into place. With a soft, satisfying click that resonated through Fleck's entire being, the letter settled into its rightful position. The moment of restoration was marked by a wave of light that washed over the entire page, breathing new life into the dormant ink. To Fleck's amazement, the illustration beside the text, a noble knight raising his sword in triumph, briefly sprang to life. The painted warrior turned his head, offering a solemn salute to the tiny hero who had restored the story's magic. As the glow faded, Fleck found himself perched on the vast, newly illuminated page. The words around him seemed to hum with renewed vigor, the story once again whole and vibrant. From his vantage point, Fleck could see the entire bookshelf, now bathed in a warmer, more magical light that spoke of adventures waiting to unfold. In that moment, as Fleck's tiny silhouette stood proudly next to the restored letter, he understood a profound truth. Every character, no matter how small, has a vital part to play in the grand tapestry of stories. And as the last motes of magic settled around him, Fleck knew that his own tale had only just begun in the wondrous, secret world of the great library.